Hello, this is King Bumi.
What you talking crazy for, man? This is Tony Montana.
Actually, this is George Clooney, and, no, it's not, mate. This is Russell Crowe.
Actually, all of you are wrong. This is Puss in Boots.
And this is André Sogliuzzo, and you're watching In Conversation with Amber the Fangirl.
Oh, I cannot wait to talk to her.
Hi guys, Amber here. Welcome back to In Conversation with ATF. My guest today is an actor, a voice actor, an all-around nice guy. He is the voice of, in films, Mick Squizzy in Open Season 3, taking over from, if I'm not mistaken, Billy Connolly?
Billy Connolly, that's right, look.
Smokey and Steamer in The Polar Express.
That's right. I don't even know if they say their names in the movie. They did at one time, but that's the names of the train engineers. There was a scene where they said, "I'm Smokey and I'm Steamer and we're twins," but that was cut out. So anyway, maybe it's in the special features.
It probably is, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, you were the voice of Jerry in Tom and Jerry, the film.
The recent, yes. Although
Yeah.
Jerry has, it's hard to say voice as if he speaks. It's his vocalization.
Vocalizing.
All the little noises, because traditionally Tom and Jerry don't have any sounds because it's just sound effects and music and all the classic cartoons. But because they were moving around in a live action world, they thought, well, they must have some sort of physical vocal. So there's giggles and coughs and gasps and all that. Yeah. So me and another actor just went through the whole film and chased all the sounds and movement, and then they mixed them in. Yeah.
That's so cool. Wow. And
So it's pretty exciting to do Jerry. I call him the second most famous mouse in the history of animation.
Who's the first?
Mickey, come on.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I think Mickey
I've
has to
seen it
take.
as Mickey.
Well, first of all,
Um,
Mickey came before Jerry. So that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. So Mickey did come first. If we
Yeah.
look at the history. So
yeah.
he gets top billing.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Who else does? For theme park rides, my guess has been the voice of a Sideswipe for
Not just theme park rides, love. I mean
Not
the
just-
second film.
And you're in,
second
and in
movie.
the second
Yes.
film as well.
Revenge of the
Sideswipe-
Falling.
Yeah.
Sideswipe. Yeah, there we
Oh,
are.
that's
There we
so
go.
cool. Wow. So yes, Sideswipe for Transformers Revenge of the Fallen and Transformers The Ride. Doc for the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train at Disney World, Disneyland, the Disney theme parks.
Oh,
in
thank you for remembering that. You know, I confess I forgot that because I've done Doc's voice in a variety of situations. I forgot that I'm on a theme park ride too. You can send me that one in the chat again so I can dig it up and remember it. I've done Doc. They re-edited a couple of Disney DVD things a long time ago where we dubbed over the original movie. It's shame on them, but yeah, it wasn't. They were just using some of it. I think it was How to Bake a Princess Cake or something ridiculous. But yeah, so we did that, and then theme park rides. I think Disney cruises. A bunch of us who cover all the dwarves get together every couple of years, and we have to sing Hi Ho. Because the original recording is very old and not digital and all of that, and not stereo and all. So we get together and we've re-recorded a Hi Ho a bunch of different times, different lengths, yeah. So that's, but I love doing Doc whenever I can.
That's so
What?
cool.
Yeah, so
Wow.
good to be on your podcast. Yeah.
For television shows, my guest has been the voice of Monty in Stuart Little, the animated series, Dynamite in Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, Clawtrap in Transformers Robots in Disguise 2015, King Bumi in Avatar The Last Airbender, if I did pronounce that correctly. Also been in cartoons like G.I. Joe Renegades, Justice League, The Owl House, Rocket Power, Phineas and Ferb, Star Wars Rebels, and video games like Puss in Boots for the Shrek franchise, Captain Rockbelly in EverQuest 2, Thundercracker and Scavenger in Transformers Devastation, Sparx in Spyro A Hero's Tale, Year of the Dragon, Enter the Dragonfly, and the Reignited trilogy, Camo in Skylanders, the Skylanders franchise.
True.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, to back up, because you went fast, Puss in Boots I covered for well over a decade. Not just video games, but commercials, as well as if you go on YouTube, which is really beautiful. You look up DreamWorks TV, Puss in Boots.
Uh-huh.
I did full motion capture, voice, movement, everything at DreamWorks Animation Motion Capture. So if you look those up
Wow.
on YouTube, actually, if you just find me on Instagram, I posted one of them on my website. I have a bunch of them. But yeah, DreamWorks TV, Puss in Boots, and you'll see there's like, I think, well over 50 shorts that I did as Puss in Boots.
Full everything to be Puss in Boots. Sword fighting, dancing, singing, jumping is wonderful. Yes.
Have you seen the new movie?
Not yet.
I haven't either.
But I love Antonio Banderas. It's an honor to cover Antonio's voice, especially because we have the same birthday. It's very nice.
Oh
So
wow.
it was Catsmat to be a Kismat, yes. And you are wearing the kitty ears, so I feel very close to you today, my dear.
Oh, yeah, and you 10th of August birthday, so I presume you share that date with Antonio. That's it. There we go.
Yes.
Sweet, that's so cool. I guess has also been a part of the Assassin's Creed franchise and was also actually the stunt gorilla for the SpongeBob episode. I had an accident, that episode where the gorilla comes along and then escapes on the horse,
Yes, and we can get to that. I have a very funny story about how that job came about. Yeah.
Ooh,
Yes.
okay. My guess
Yes, that is my one SpongeBob credit, but apparently it's legendary. At the time, it didn't feel so legendary, but now hardcore SpongeBob fans love that. Apparently, it's kind of a terrifying episode too, but that's a whole. I mean, I went and looked it up, and there's long blogs and analyses and fan chats about that episode traumatizing them as little children. Yeah, so there you go.
Well, who is my guest? My guest? It's André Sogliuzzo. Hello.
Oh, and you left out, baby. You left out Tony Montana in the Scarface video game. Okay, mira. That's a good one.
Sorry,
Scarface is a big one. It's okay. It's okay, I just wanted to say,
Yeah, that's okay.
Don't forget this one.
That's okay. Well, we just put that up as a special mention.
That's right.
So, Andre, how are you this evening? Well,
this evening for you, this afternoon, I am not suffering in the cold like so many people. We're here in sunny Southern California, so it's actually a very, very beautiful, sunny, warm day here. Yes.
That must be so cool. Wow.
Well, that's the best time of year. I'm a New Yorker through and through, and I miss New York just about, I'd say, 9 months out of the year, but sort of January, February, March, and the middle of April, I don't mind being here at all. It's the best time to be in LA during the winter. It's beautiful.
Oh, that's really cool.
I'm here year round and get to New York less frequently, unfortunately, but yeah.
Wow. So I like to really start this little chat off by bringing up, of course, your role as the gorilla in SpongeBob. Now, you were just the in-suit body performer. Of course, the gorilla was voiced by
the wonderful Frank Welker.
Is here on my wardrobe.
Yes. Frank Welker was the voice of the gorilla. What happened with that?
D. Bradley Baker was the horse. Yeah.
Yes. Who was?
D. Bradley Baker.
Was D the horse? I don't even remember D that day. I know D, but I don't remember him. Maybe he was in full costume, so I never saw D's face that day. What happened was my agent said to me, I was sort of new out in LA. And, I'd only been here a few months. He said, I want to get you in with the SpongeBob people. They're a very tight group. They don't always have a lot of outside new people coming in. So I just need you to go down there and do some gorilla voices for the day. And I thought, okay, great, whatever, And so I get the address, the day comes, and I show up, and it's not a recording studio. It's a full sound stage with a giant green screen. And I thought, well, that's strange, but okay. I walk in and there's a guy. Oh, hi. Oh, glad you're here. Do you do a lot of gorilla work? And I'm like, oh, yeah, of course I do, And he goes, great. The suit's just in the other room there. And I'm like, the suit? And I walk in and it's that big, smelly, old gorilla suit from some Hollywood costume rental place. And I even recognized it from this is way before my time and your time, but I watched a lot of it. Three Stooges. I think there's a Three Stooges episode with that exact costume. So that costume easily went back to the 1940s. I don't know. it smelled like it. It was musty, mildew rubberhead. And so I just kind of went with it. I thought, well, I'm not going to say I don't do gorilla stunt work. So I put the suit on, and then I'm calling my agent going, "It's that gorilla suit." He's like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." You know, and so they didn't know that I wasn't a gorilla suit acrobat. I just winged it for the day. And then again, that was almost, I think it was 20 years ago at least. But I almost blacked out a few times, because if you watch that, I'm running back and forth. I've got SpongeBob. I'm jumping on him. I'm doing somersaults. I'm beating SpongeBob. I jump on the donkey, the horse's back. I'm riding. I mean, it was a full acrobatic day on that soundstage, and I'm hyperventilating into this rubber head. And a couple of times I literally was passing out. I had to stop and breathe and go again, and it was crazy. Yeah, but so at the time I was kind of irritated. You know, it was one of those days where I wasn't supposed to be doing this at all. But it went, you know, I gave it my all, and when I saw it back, it came out great, and I loved it. But you know, it's still very, very funny. So that's one of the only voice jobs that wasn't a voice job. It's a job I had by mistake, but I'm glad I had it. And I didn't even realize the impact of it until maybe 7 years ago. I was in Holland. I went to a video game college, and I was meeting with different young game designers in school and talking to them. I was a guest lecturer, and I'm walking down the hall, and these two kids come running out. They're like, "Yeah, are you the SpongeBob gorilla?" And I was like, "Yes." You know, I was like, "Oh my God, how do they know I'm the SpongeBob?" Of course, it's on my IMDb page, but at that point I hadn't even really looked it up. So it was very funny. And they were like so excited in awe of this guy in the SpongeBob gorilla suit. But and it's an honor also to have had the legendary Frank Welker indirectly collaborate with me. Although I would have loved to do my own gorilla sounds. I take my hat off to Frank anytime I can.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I do as well, because I've had the pleasure of meeting him in person twice. Have you met him in person, like at all?
No, I was in a studio on the same afternoon as Frank, and he was coming out, but it was one of those things where we sort of said hello, but I can't really say I've really met Frank and had a long talk with him. No, I would love to. But yeah, no, we've never really had the chance to work directly together, unfortunately. But yeah, I've been in proximity to Mr. Welker.
Yeah,
A lot of Scooby-Doo records in this one studio, and a lot of different jobs go in. That's often the case. We as an animation voiceover community all kind of indirectly know each other, and we've all worked together either in person or indirectly on hundreds of projects. So it's so funny when I look things up and I go, "Oh, so and so was in that." Like you said, D was the horse. I had no idea D was the horse that day. And he was, and I think I even may have ridden on his back. I'm not sure, but I did never see his face. So
that would also make for an interesting story that if you just have to tell it when you're like a bar. Oh yeah, remember the time I rode D. Bradley Baker? So how did you get your career, the ball rolling with your career? Like, where did you start? What was your original ambition? Did you always want to be a voice actor? How did it all start?
I always say anyone who does what I do, as long as I have, it's I not to put down anyone with any kind of disorder, but it's almost like Tourette's. It's a kind of disorder that we had as children. Like, I couldn't shut up. I couldn't stop making fun of different accents and sounds and birds and cats. And if I heard a noise, I would mimic it. So I was a natural, and I was doing impressions really early on, like maybe from the age of 6. And I also traveled a lot as a kid in a way that now everybody does. But when I was a kid, nobody in my neighborhood ever went to Europe. So my first trip to the UK, I was 5, turning 6. I had my 6th birthday in Edinburgh at the Edinburgh Festival.
That's where I met Frank.
My father worked with the Edinburgh Festival back long before you, dear, in the early 70s, when I was a really wee little kid. And but back then we have here what's called Masterpiece Theater, which is like BBC, right? So we watched a lot of, you would see British dramas on American public television. And my father was a theater professor, so we were a very sort of cultural academic household. So I was watching a lot of sort of artsy TV as a little kid and hearing a lot of British accents that way. But if you lived in the city, so I was born in Manhattan, but then I lived upstate in the suburbs when I was younger. So you didn't, and my father was a professor. So there were a couple of British professors at his university. A very famous, wonderful British man who was a very famous teacher at RADA, or he was the dean of RADA. His name was John Fernald, and he was the teacher for a whole generation of famous British actors like Peter O'Toole, I think Hopkins. It was a whole generation that went through RADA in the early 60s all the way to about 1970. And then he was teaching at this university my father taught at later. And so I knew John Fernald as a little boy, and he had a very elegant, proper British accent, and he was quite, very erudite and wonderful and kind. And so we went to England and visited with John, and then we went to Edinburgh, and I heard that voice. And, we landed in Glasgow, and suddenly they're speaking what language? Like it was English, but it sounded nothing like English as I knew it. So I was immediately imitating those voices. So that just became sort of a habit and a facility and a problem, because I spent a lot of time in the hall at school as a child for being disruptive, because I didn't have the ability to shut it off now like I did do now. But and everybody I know who does what I do, we're all like that. Like, you think it would be great to hang out with us, but believe me, if you're trying to watch a movie, we annoy you after a while. It's like, shut up, I'm watching the movie. One of my dear friends is Rachel Butera, and she's like the female version of me. And the two of us in a room, after a while, you just want to, so that was something I already did. And I was raised in academic theater. I was not an actor kid. I did children's theater kind of stuff, but I wasn't a professional child actor at all. But I was always sort of an actor. And as when I got older and I realized that's what I wanted to do, I moved back to New York as a young adult when I was about 19 and started studying and acting and doing theater and all kinds of things. And I'm also a musician and a songwriter. And so one of the things I was sort of doing both careers at once, trying to be a songwriter, a musician, and start an acting career. And I realized I had a facility that narrowed the field considerably, because there's all kinds of actors. I do everything. I do film, I do stage, I do voice. But I targeted a voice career very early in my career because I knew it narrowed the field considerably. And it also wasn't based on how you look. And at that time, I looked really, really young for my age, which can be a blessing and a curse, because you look a lot younger than you are, but you want to play older things and you're sort of limited to just these things. And so I thought, well, I need to get a bit older to sort of broaden my range. But meanwhile, voice-wise, I can be a 70-year-old wizard. I can be a Russian general or a German Nazi or whatever. I can be all of these things. But so I started sort of targeting that a bit, but it took me a while to get an agent in New York. So I was sort of knocking around doing theater and all kinds of different jobs. But yeah, as I focused on that, eventually I did get an agent. And one of the first things I booked professionally, and I'm not sure of the order, I think I booked Celebrity Deathmatch first.
Mhm.
And it was like celebrity voices. Those were MTV claymation celebrities pulling each other's heads off, fighting to the death. And I did over 50 different celebrity impressions for that show. But one of the first animated cartoons I did, because in New York at that period, in the early 90s, there wasn't a lot of animation. Most of it was done out in Los Angeles. But I did Courage the Cowardly Dog in New York. And I did a character called Bushwick, the giant cockroach in Courage. You want that? You want to go behind that door? You don't want to know what's behind that door. You want these bones? You don't want these bones. Yeah, so Bushwick was a lot of fun. And that was one of the first, that and Celebrity Deathmatch. And I just slowly started building a reel. And then I came out to LA, met the agents from my agency out in LA, and they said, well, you really need to move here because that's where all of this is. And I eventually I did. And eventually I started working pretty quickly after that. But that's sort of an abbreviated version. But one of the things I also did as a musician, when you're playing in clubs and coffee houses, and the way it works is, especially in those days, and it's actually no different now, a place books you because of how many people you can put in the seats, because they're trying to sell beer most of the time. When you're not that well known, you're in a bar, you're in a, you know, and so you would be on a bill one night with like 3 different acts. Now, everybody's got their people to see them. So they go up, and now it's your turn, and all their friends who never get together all in one room start talking over you. And I wasn't a loud rock band. I was a songwriter. So it was acoustic. It was quieter. It's got to be a listening room. But everybody's sort of talking over my wonderful, sensitive singer-songwriter music. So I would suddenly go, here's a song that I did when I was in the Cotswolds. I wrote it. I was feeling very lonely. And I would start to talk in an accent, and suddenly the whole room would go, ooh, a British accent. You know, Americans will do anything for a British accent. So then I learned to get that room quiet. So I started to use my talent as an actor, as a musician, just to get myself heard. So that was always a constant rehearsal. And then the other thing, again, long before I was paid to work, people would just call my phone machine for very elaborate phone messages. I was just a frustrated, unemployed actor, and my phone messages would be all kinds of voices and different things. Now, not anymore, but back then, yeah. And I would just do them over and over and practice and get it right and do retakes. It was crazy. You know, I was just doing it for myself. But that practice, when I finally did get behind a microphone and get paid, I was already very well versed in sort of doing a take, hearing my voice back, making adjustments, doing it again. So that's always what I tell young people who want to be voice actors is, you know, especially it's a different world now. It's very easy to record yourself in a way that back then you had to have all kinds of equipment and, you know, or a studio to make a demo. Now it's right at your fingertips. So, yeah. So, you know, just always keep doing it. Always keep recording, playing it back, hearing yourself. And, you know, and eventually, you know, if you really keep at it and maybe take a class where you've got an experienced coach, especially now, everything's on Zoom. I mean, you can work with some of the top people. Charlie Adler, who's a legend. Charlie teaches right on Zoom now. I mean, it's a totally different world. So you could work with Charlie from England, I'm sure, if you wanted to. You'd have to be up pretty late, but you know, so in that sense, you know, I don't know. I've never seen Charlie's class, but when you used to be in a studio, you would record, you would hear the take back. Maybe you'd hear the other students, you'd hear their takes back, and you would learn sort of by trial and error. I didn't go that route. I never took voice classes. I was already doing voices anyway. But yeah, that's always one of the things I say. Always take a class where you can hear yourself recorded and played back and get those notes. It's always really helpful. But the more you do it, the better you get.
André, do you prefer André, or is that how you say your name?
André. In français, if we are in Paris, you would say André. Ouais.
André.
Je m'appelle André, but in America, I grew up, I'm André. Yeah.
André. Okay, well, André, I'd like to talk to you about your work for the Transformers franchise. Now, a lot of people know you as the voice of Sideswipe in Revenge of the Fallen. Of course, Thundercracker and Scavenger in Transformers Devastation, which I have on the Xbox 360. Shows how old I am. And Clawtrap in Robots in Disguise. So, first of all, I'm going to talk to you about the live action movie in Storm, and what was it like to work on those? Because of course they got Peter Cullen back as Optimus Prime. So what was it like to do that?
It was that one's an unusual one because what happened historically with that film, and I know TF Nation. Shout out to my brothers at TF Nation in Birmingham. I went there had a lovely time with TF Nation, and I got to know. I confess, I got much more involved in the sort of the Transformers universe after really spending a nice long immersive weekend in the Transformers world. And it's a really wonderful community. And the Transformers world, you know, I'm from the first generation technically of Transformers toys before the cartoon, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I was a little bit older, so I didn't really have but I remember when it came out, it was just okay, it's by Hasbro and it's kind of a cool toy and it does stuff. And but that whole universe and the sort of philosophy and the comic books and all of that came up later, well after me. So I was not keyed into it. I didn't really know. Even when I did the voice, I knew Transformers was a thing, but I didn't really know it, I confess. But what happened with the second film, because usually when you do animation, and Polar Express is a similar story for different reasons. Usually you record the actor first. The best animation, you record our voice or my voice, and then they animate to that voice. What happened with the second film, Revenge of the Fallen, is there was a big writer's strike at that point. And so the script wasn't really finished. But these kind of big films have a schedule and they have to happen. And so Michael Bay began animating all of these elaborate robot fight scenes before there was really script. And that's not the ideal way to do a movie. And this is in my opinion, but the hardcore Transformers community, they always kind of go after Michael Bay a bit anyway, but they love the robots. They don't always love the movies. You know what I mean? Some of the movies are better than others. And it's just the thing, but they're, you know, it's incredible to see. But like Bumblebee, I love. That's like a perfect film. You know, like Bumblebee is really a beautiful, really well-crafted story. Revenge of the Fallen, I came in and it was a strange one because the audition came in, as all my auditions do most of the time. They come in, my agent sends them to me, I go into a booth, and there'll be a brief character description. And at that one, it said Sideswipe is almost kind of a James Bond suave, I think, if I remember it. And he didn't want a British accent, but he wanted the Britishness about it, you know. And so you know, it was sort of like, yes, hello, I'm Sideswipe. You know, I'm very, you know, almost English, but not quite. And then they processed the voices so much that you almost can't tell what we were doing anyway. But that's, and then, so the session was supposed to happen. It got postponed. It was going to happen. It got postponed. Then I was in New York for some reason. And then they called and said, are you available Wednesday? I said, well, I'm in New York. So they put me on a soundstage in New York, and Michael Bay was just in my ears. So I worked with Michael Bay, but not in the same room. And so I walk in and those scenes are already animated, and that incredible ride through Tokyo, you know, where he's, or whatever city he's in, and he cuts the Audi in half and the whole bit, that was there. So we were throwing words to picture, you know, and so I had script lines in front of me, but sometimes it looked, so what I would hear in my ears was, all right, yeah, say this. And then I'd do a line or two, and then I'd hear, it was like Michael Bay furiously on a keyboard, like moving stuff around. He's like, cool, okay, go. And it was wonderful. He was like this hyperactive teenage dude, like working with his robots, you know what I mean? He was really having a great time, and we were having fun, you know? And so say this, or I would just improvise lines. And if I'm not mistaken, damn, I'm good, might be mine. It might be. I can't say it 100%, but I think I remember on that day throwing, when he came through, and I go, damn, I'm good. I think that was my line, but you know, I won't commit to it because I don't want Michael Bay mad at me. But yeah, so that's how that one happened. And again, as you go, you start with one character. Oftentimes it evolves into something else. So he may have been more British when we started than by the end. And again, that movie, there's not a lot of it. Then there's another big scene at the airport when I think Optimus's body is dropped traumatically to the tarmac. And we all have lines in that. And then there was other scenes that I think that were cut out. That movie was kind of all over the place. There were scenes in, scenes out, robot fights here. It was kind of, yeah. And so we were often just improvising lines over what had already been animated and seeing what fit best. And so that, again, isn't the ideal way to do it. Usually you have very specific stories, specific scenes. And I think he was sort of cutting that together and creating it as he went. So that was a little bit special. And then, then later doing the theme park ride was a lot of fun because we were all in the same place, right? All of us, it was sort of like one afternoon, and it was just like all of us were there one after another, and doing our Transformers. So Peter was there, and it was great. And then we had sort of behind the scenes conversations, and yeah, that I think I was cut out of the deleted scenes, but yeah, they talked to everyone else but me in the publicity material, but sucks, but them's the breaks. But yeah, so that was my initial thing, and then so that's the films.
That's the Bayverse.
That's my induction into the Bayverse. And then I was supposed to be in the next film.
Dark of the Moon.
Yes, Dark of the Moon. I was supposed to be in that, and they kept putting me on hold, and then and the session kept happening and not happening, happening and not happening. And that was right around the time that Megan Fox had that fight with Michael Bay, and suddenly she wasn't in the film, and it was a whole thing. If you remember, she's not in that film. There was like bad press or whatever. So suddenly I think their onus was to get as many sort of names as they could for the publicity stuff. And so suddenly I was on hold like literally 3 or 4 times to work, and then suddenly I'm like, what happened to the Transformers thing? And then I found out, they're going with James Remar. So who, I don't say he's fine, but yeah, and he's a very well-known on-camera actor here in the States. And so I think they just, I don't think it had anything to do with my performance. I think it had to just do with higher ups at the studios wanting, because suddenly they didn't have her as the big sort of celebrity draw for their advertising. They wanted to get as many celebrity names and quotes as they could on the film.
Yeah, so marketing, isn't it? Yeah.
Suddenly I was out, them's the breaks. And I say that to actors as well. There's a million reasons why you don't get a job. Much of the time it has nothing to do with you. The politics high up as to why things happen are just out of your control, which kind of sucks. But then again, it frees you up to go, don't take everything personally in this world. Most of the time it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, of course. But then you made a dramatic return. Well, when I say dramatic, I mean as in you returned, well, in one of the greatest Transformers video games ever, Transformers Devastation.
Thank you. Well, that one, if I'm not mistaken, what was great about that one was they were really trying to get back to the original. They were trying to get back to sort of the traditional, original Transformers cartoons that, started the whole thing off. And that was really fun working on that, because those guys were very conscious of it. So I watched, again, as I said, I was beyond the age that grew up on those cartoons, but I went back and watched them and saw the feel of it. And, and so that was really a lot of fun working. That's and for fans, they all sort of universally love that game. Yeah.
Yeah, because they got all the G1 actors back. I mean, they got Frank Peter, they got Dan Gilvezan, Greg Berger, Michael Bell. So they really got a lot of people back for that one. From the original show, so that's why I think it was because it captured the love and the feel for the original G1 cartoon. That's why it was so beloved by well, it still is beloved by so many people. Yeah, of course. And you were in the Spyro trilogy. You were Sparx the Dragonfly.
Sparx the Dragonfly was one of the first, if I'm not mistaken, might be the first. If you go down my IMDb page, I think Sparx might have been the first video game character I ever did. And that was fun because Sparx doesn't speak. He has subtitles. So Sparx buzzes as we know, or as Spyro fans know. So I'd say, "Oh, Amber, it's so lovely talking with you today," and I would say, and then you would just read the subtitle. So that was a whole other different exercise. How do I convey what I'm saying through sound and not words? And that's come up many times since, but that was one of the earliest times I did it. And yeah, so I did Spyro in a few of the games, and then they brought us back in for Spyro Reignited when they remastered the games, and they also added some new content. And yeah, anytime I can do Spyro, I love it. There's been a few Spyros after me, but for the hardcore fans, love, I think I am Spyro. As far as I'm concerned, I am. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's the Reignite, the Spyro. Is it just called Spyro? I don't. It loses the name. Spyro the Dragon or Spyro Year of the Dragon. Is that the first one?
Yeah. Year of the
Yeah.
Dragon, 2000.
Yeah, 2000. That was my first. Yeah, that might be my first video game.
Oh,
yeah.
that's so cool. So
Yeah.
because Tom Kenny was Spyro, and then Greg Berger was in, and Neil Ross, he was Moneybags, and yeah. So I'm having a look now because.
And most of the time, as I said, we don't all work together.
Yeah.
Sometimes in a video game you will, but much of the time, because of the line load and the in-game, like sometimes we might be together in a room to do what are the cutscenes.
Yeah.
But you know, because it's so many lines to do. And again, Spyro's kind of your narrator. I mean, Sparx is kind of your narrator, so he doesn't really always interact. Really, so my sessions were always separate from everyone else on that game. Yeah, so I didn't meet Tom until a few years later, even though we were in a bunch of projects early on. Yeah.
Ah, that's really cool. And something I've literally just found out now, like right now, is that you were in Lego DC Batman Family Matters. You were the voice of the Riddler.
I am the Riddler in that, yes. And that
Oh,
was I was directed by, if I remember correctly, Colette Sunderman, who's a wonderful animation director and video game director. And
Oh, it
lots of
doesn't say
different
on.
Things.
It usually says who
Yeah.
the voice director is on the.
Yeah,
on the
usually
behind the
that's
voice
Colette.
section, doesn't
I
it?
remember vivid. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, that's Colette. And that was a lot of fun. Anytime I've been in a few different Batman related projects, but yeah, I mean, I grew up as a Batman fan and loving the Riddler, so that was a thrill to get to do that. Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. I was gonna
And
say,
if you
wow.
and if you go to my Instagram, and I'll send you the QR code or whatever it is. Yeah, I'm now posting little clips of various projects I do, and I have the Riddler up on that one. Actually, it's kind of cool.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, each one I'll put up a post of something I did, and there'll be like a little anecdote from the session and a little video. They're usually like a minute and a half long, and I put the Riddler on there. Yeah, that one's fun.
That's so cool. I've obviously got to point out now. I've just noticed I've met a lot of the cast from that. I've met Troy Baker there. I've met Will Friedle, Nightwing, with Kevin Conroy. Who else? Josh Keane, I've had on for my podcast. Noah North is down here. Who else is there? Of course, you that I've just met. Alison Stoner's in it. Wow, I didn't realize. And of course, Tara Strong as a Batwoman.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Tara's wonderful.
I've met many people actually. Yeah, I've seen her again this May. She's doing Telford Comic Con. So yeah, I'm excited. And also we share the same birthday. So hey, that's fun. If you don't mind me asking, I know people say, "Oh, you should never ask this question in an interview." What does the Riddler sound like in Batman Family Matters?
Oh, come on. Now you got me. Well, Batman, if I remember correctly, he might sound something like this. But again, I have not seen Batman Family Matters in some time. I think he might. I'd have to play it back. If I get out my phone, I can find it right now. Let's see. Let's find a clip. Let's see. We'll say time. We go here. I have a clip. Let's see. Go to my Instagram. There we go. See? Boom, boom, boom. See, there's a million little clips.
Tell
So
you
we
what, I'm
have
gonna follow you
Batman
right now.
Family Matters. Here we go.
You should get a notification to say that I've just followed you. There you go. Probably just got a follow thing from me.
Oh, I disconnected the wrong thing. One sec. So many gadgets, so little time. You can cut this out later. Here we go. Okay, here we go. There we go. There we are.
Let's
To
have a
answer your question,
Mhm.
It's what do you call a bird? Winter. A bird. It's what do you call two criminals who are about to go to prison? What? The- Uh.
there you go.
So cool, yeah, because like
Yeah.
Tom Kennedy was the voice of Penguin in the Batman cartoon from 2004, and then Scott Manville did Robin in Teen Titans. Like it's like all these people like coming together. It's like, wow, okay, I have got to check this out. This film, definitely. Okay.
No, we're all in it, and it's fun. And as I said, I wish we were always all in the same room. But again, that session I did the Riddler all by myself, and then they cut us all together. But yeah.
Aw. Oh, that must have been so cool because obviously you did it with like a lot of great people, and it's definitely something you can put on your resume as probably one of your proudest projects.
It is, and just so much of the time, it's being able to put your imprint on something you grew up with is always a thrill. I was a huge Star Wars fan as a kid, and I went in on, I think it was a Batman. I worked with Mark Hamill, and I confess I'm not sure on what. I just remember walking into the room and Mark Hamill was sitting behind me. We were all in the booth together. I'm like, and he was, and I think he might have been doing the Joker. I forgot what it was. It was at Nickelodeon. I don't
Having
know.
a look.
You can do a deep dive and figure out. There's the trivia. What project did Andre and Mark Hamill work with in the same day? I don't even remember. Because I remember being just so gobsmacked that I was working with Mark Hamill.
I think I found out for you.
What is
I've
it?
searched you up through a team up on Behind the Voice Actors. It will show what mutual projects you have. So with you and Mark Hamill, you have 12 mutual projects together. That's Harvey Birdman, attorney at law. So it's Harvey Birdman, attorney at law. Samurai Jack, Justice League. It might have been Justice League.
It might have been Justice League.
Because he was Joker on that.
And he's the Joker on that. Okay, then
yeah,
I think
he
we
played
were
the
in
Joker
the
on
same
Justice
room.
League.
And is that a Nickelodeon project?
No, I think it was
No.
like Warner Brothers. Yeah.
Well, maybe it was a Warner Brothers.
Stuart Little, The Batman, American Dad, Avatar, The Last Airbender. Might have been that.
It could have been an
Because
Avatar.
that was Nickelodeon.
Then we might have been in the same, and I was Bumi.
Ben and
in that.
Izzy. Yeah, you were Boomy in that.
So I think, and that was it one of the final episodes?
I think
Sozin's
so.
comment or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
okay.
think
That's what, maybe he wasn't doing the Joker at all. I think we might have been in the same room because I remember being at Nickelodeon and walking in and Mark was already sitting behind me and I was in front of him doing my King Boomy. And that's what it was. Yeah, that's what it was. So we were in the same room for that. As I said, it's rare, but with animation, you tend to, on the better shows, you will work ensemble on those bigger scenes. But video games, because there's so many more lines and short lines and in-game lines, we tend to be separated out. But so that was one. And I met Mark on other occasions after that, but that was the only time I've ever worked in the same room. So there's a lot of like amazing legendary people. When I did Scarface, The World Is Yours, I'm Tony Montana. I'm the lead character. And that game had well over 5,000 lines. Everybody worked with me. I didn't get to work with everybody. I worked alone, but there's all these legends in that game. It's incredible, the cast on that game. And I didn't get to meet any of them. So, boo-hoo. But I mean, a lot of them I know anyway. But yeah, that's always fun.
Yeah, of course. And the other projects were Kingdom Hearts, Birth by Sleep, Avengers Assemble, and Lego Dimensions.
Yes.
That you've done. Oh, and Ben and Izzy as well. That was a CGI series from 2008. I've never heard of it before. I've just had a look at it now, and I've just.
To be honest, I don't think I've heard of it either, and I mean it.
It just like slowly magically disappears. Oh man. So you I'll have to wait for me to get my words, get my teeth in my mouth. So of course, would you consider yourself more known for video games or like TV cartoon films?
I would say it's kind of equal. Look, volume-wise, I've done many more video games, but am I known more? I don't know, and that's kind of up to the fan world. I mean, you know, I'm very proudly a working actor. Big stars get to do more of the features than regular working actors. Regular working actors, we get to do TV stuff and video games. But I'm in some big A-list animation projects as well. Love, Death, and Robots. You know, Polar Express is now like Wizard of Oz. It plays once a year at the holiday. It's one of those films that will play forever, you know, and I'm very proud to be a part of that. You know, Sideswipe. So I'm in some huge animated projects, but I'm in huge video games as well. So in my mind, it's 50-50. I sort of do whatever you throw my way. What fans know me for is kind of what their niche is, in a way. You know, if you're a big gamer, then you know me because I'm a big game star. If you're more of an animation person, then you might know me from that. If you're a Transformers person, well, then it's all about Sideswipe. There's a lot of crossover between Transformers and Star Wars. And in the original Clone Wars cartoon, I was everybody. I'm all the clone troopers, battle droids, Captain Typho, Captain Fordo, Captain I'm leaving some out. But yeah, those were the first 2 seasons, which were Cartoon Network. Then when Disney bought it, it went over and it became The Clone Wars versus Clone Wars. And then
yes,
that was a whole
3D animated
that was
2D.
They brought over some of the old people and I think I got thrown out with the bathwater because I was so prominent as so many of the, you know, it's a clone army. So if you're one, you're all of them. Yay on me. But yeah. So I was not in the subsequent series until later, Star Wars Rebels. I'm Captain Silver. I'm evil, an evil English. It was originally Captain Slaver and they changed it to Silver. But I'm rather evil in English and typical. But yeah, so Star Wars and Transformers kind of cross over. So again, Star Wars fans, I was at Star Wars Celebration like 6 or 7 months ago, which was incredible. And that's a whole other community. But as I said, a lot of them cross over. A lot of Avatar fans showed up that day as well. So
wow.
Yeah, so that's a lot of fun, you know. And it's changed now in that it's nice to find out, to answer your question, it's nice to find out what I'm known for. Sometimes fans will bring up pictures for me to sign up things I don't even know what they are, like in the video game. And now I love him and I love doing him, but I never actually saw him, was Big Norm in Crash Nitro Kart. Right. Yeah. And so I was like, who's that great fat guy with the striped shirt on? They're like, that's Big Norm. Like, how do you not know Big Norm? And it was like, you're the voice of him. And you know, then I went back and looked at it and I love Big Norm. But at the time I think it was at TF Nation. Someone brought me this Big Norm drawing to sign. And I was like, who's that cool looking dude? You know? So, yeah. So it's cool that, yeah. So again, it's not to say, oh, I'm so busy, I can't keep track, but I don't always watch everything I do. And also the lag time between my recording session and the release of a project is so long sometimes that and especially with video games, we do them under code names and they're trying to keep everything so top secret. And unless sometimes I know what that code name is for. When I'm working on a Star Wars game, I know I'm working on a Star Wars game, but sometimes it's a new game and it's a whole new thing. And so it's under code name this, and whatever that code name is, then like 2 years later, I'll see posters for something. I'm like, I think I'm in that, you know, you know, so, you know, I could then follow up and ask my agent, okay, that thing I worked on 2 years ago under code name this, what game is that? And then they can tell me, they'll find out. But a lot of the times I don't bother to do that. And then I don't realize I'm in something, you know, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say your proudest moment in your career has to be?
My proudest moment in my career would be, there's so many. One of them was being Tony Montana, because that was at the time that game came out. I remember there was a demo first, and I auditioned, I sent it in, and and I know at that time they looked and I mean, I've heard many numbers. I heard they auditioned like 6,000 people for that game. Every actor my age and later now, I meet them all on the internet. Everybody has kind of a Tony Montana they do. It's a sort of a guy thing,
Yeah.
Everybody loves that Tony Montana. They just put it out there, and hey, what you talking about over here, Amber, with your show,
So, and so, I always did Tony's voice. And then the audition came in and I booked the demo. Then it kind of went away. And then they threw out the audition. I had to re-audition for that game twice. Because a whole new creative team came in once it became a game. I think
right.
whatever happened. First it was a demo, then it went away. So then the audition went out again. I'm like, why am I having to re-audition for this? I already booked this job. And so I cut together my old audition, which the new team probably hadn't heard, and added new lines. And so I really fought for that part. And Pacino had final say over the voice. So that was a big deal. And then I finally booked that. So again, that was a huge game in its day, and that game did really, 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 really well. And that was kind of before social media, unfortunately. So I never got sort of the recognition and push at that time that if that game were coming out today, it would be a much bigger deal in terms of highlighting me as the lead in a game that easily grossed well over $100 million or more. That's a big deal for a guy who isn't an A-list movie star to be heading up a project like that. Because if I suck, the game sucks. You're playing as Tony Montana. And so that was a very proud moment. And then things like Polar Express, because on a totally different emotional level, those characters were created by Michael Jeter, who was a wonderful, wonderful actor who died in the middle of that film. And so I was picking up when Michael Jeter left off, and I had to honor his work. So that was a very proud moment. So I heard all this footage and saw some footage of Michael Jeter working, and I heard his voice. That's why I can tell you where the characters say their names. Michael Jeter did this whole thing, but those sections were cut out of the film. I believe if you look at the Polar Express deleted scenes, you will see Michael Jeter's work, and you will see some of those scenes that were cut out. But so, yeah, anytime you can honor the work of somebody who's passed away is a very sensitive and proud moment. And so I was very happy to get that right. And that was a real collaboration on the couple of days that I worked with Robert Zemeckis. As I said before, when we talked about the Transformers, that was also not ideal because Michael Jeter had passed away, and that whole train sequence that's in the film, he animated with 2 acrobats. Because you remember Smokey and Steamer are doing all this wild stuff and spins and turns and the counter pan and so they were not voice actors or really actors. They were incredible acrobats. So they were doing their, not to slight them, but their bad impression of Michael Jeter. And my job was to lay his voice over their movement, which was very, very difficult and challenging. And so I want to match Michael Jeter, but I got to match these guys' energy and movement. So it was tricky. And so it took a couple of days. And Robert Zemeckis was really wonderful to work with, and he was very collaborative. So those sessions were a lot of fun. And I was very, very proud of the way that ultimately came out. It's one of my favorite things that I've gotten to do. So those would probably, in terms of animation or video games, those would be 2 of the big ones. But King Bumi is one of my favorites, and I got to create him completely out of thin air. He wasn't someone else's voice. He was my creation. and he was sort of based on a friend of mine. So that was really really fun. So those are certain characters that are dear to my heart. I love doing Puss in Boots, but again, that's Bandera. So I'm brought in oftentimes as a voice match guy. But anytime I can create a character out of thin air, that's so much fun as well. So
Sweet. Wow. Of course, yeah, I've got to bring that up real quick. And I've just oh yes. Did you see the Avatar last Airbender reunion at SAC Anime? All the cast was there. Like Greg Delisle was there, Mae Whitman was there, and like everyone, Greg Baldwin, and they had like this massive cast reunion. They each dressed as their character that they.
Yeah, I saw pictures of it. Nobody called me on the phone. I'll say. Yeah,
well,
but yeah, I was bummed because I've been at conventions with all of them before. I saw the picture of it. It was great. I would have loved to have tried to do, although I have to say I'd have to get really ripped as Bumi and do white armpit hair, because Bumi, someone can correct me, but he may be the only animated character with armpit hair that I know of. But yeah.
Yeah, that'll be really cool. I love voice actors who just cosplay as their own characters that they voice.
Yeah.
It's really unique. Yeah, it's like a whole different perspective on cosplay. And of course, yes, I'm gonna mention it. Scarface, Tony Montana. Yeah, we've got to mention it now because I know there will be someone out there who will be yelling at the screen if I didn't mention it. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that, shall we? So it was released for the PlayStation 2 in 2006 actually. You were handpicked by Al Pacino himself, so that is one thing definitely to be proud of. What else? What looking back, did you expect it to be as big as it is? Did you expect the legacy to hold up to this day?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Because again, Scarface has a long history in the culture well before video games in a way. And that was, in its time when that movie first came out in America or even worldwide, it was almost like this wild cartoon. They didn't get it. The violence, it was, because people weren't really aware. If you look at the history, I mean, that's a whole other history. If you watch the show Narcos, there's a lot of violence and cartels and drugs or whatever. It gives kind of the history of what was happening in the drug trade. At that time, Oliver Stone wrote the script to the movie Scarface, and he went down and met with cartel leaders, and he knew the kind of really horrendous kind of violence that was going on. In America, we were completely ignorant of it. So when that movie came out, culturally, it was way ahead of what Americans knew about the drug trade in a way. So people thought it was this exaggerated, overly violent, whatever. But that character was a very, very indelible character. And it's one of the things Pacino always said about it, which is, he said, it had its finger on what's out there. He said, it knew what was out there, which is a very abstract way of saying, but it did. That character was a very he's a little guy with huge ambitions. I've said this before in interviews, and you can see it. In the in-game interviews, there's an interview of me talking about it back when that game came out, which he's an identifiable immigrant story of the guy who just wants the world, walks into a room like he owns the place and takes it over. And that became a huge, of the characters people run up to Pacino with, every garbage man, every postman, yes, he's Michael Corleone, he's so many legendary characters, but Tony Montana is the one that every little guy in the world identifies with, because the sheer, forgive my French, the balls on that guy are just incredible, And so, yeah, he's a kind of id in a way. And so to suddenly get to inhabit such an extreme, incredible creation, and not book it once, but book it twice, was a very, very big deal. And, I had, as I said, 5,000 lines or more as that character. So you really have time. In that game, as you go up to everybody, we had to create dialogue for every person on the street that he would run into. So if it's hey, baby, do you want some ice cream? Or whatever, whoever it was, there was a different conversation the player could potentially have. So that game was, as you said, PS2, but PS3 had already come out, but they knew their buying audience probably still only had PS2. So it's really one of the best PS2 games.
Yeah.
It's very much open world like Grand Theft Auto is. But it plays really well. The driving is great. The shooting is great. The graphics are great. The soundtrack is insane. If you know, like they spent so much money on the music for that game. It's like they wouldn't do that now, but it was like a jukebox. Like you could just play the music from that game alone, and it would be this 80s mashup of like all these incredible tunes. So yeah, it was just a huge game in its ambitions, in its execution, in its length. So I'm not surprised. It's dying in my mind for a remaster. Fans ask me every couple of weeks. They'll get a message. When are they going to remaster?
When are they going to remaster Tony Montana, man? You know, I'm so.
Bring back Al Pacino for like a cameo. Sorry, I forgot the word for a second. Yeah, he's freaking back of a cameo in it, and yeah.
But at the time, I have a bit of a history with Al as well. I worked with Pacino a long time ago, long ago, and he knew I did impressions, and he knew I did him, but he didn't know I did. Well, I'm sure I knew better than to do Tony Montana for Al, because everybody else in the world would run up and do Tony Montana for Al. So, so at the time when I booked it, I didn't want the game developers to know that I had a relationship with him, because I didn't want that to be the byline. I didn't want the advertising to say so, you know?
Yeah.
I wanted to book that on my performance alone. And so he had final approval on my voice, but I asked them after, because again, that game came out in 2006. We probably started in 2003. It was like a 3-year process. It was a big game. And as I said, there was a demo, then it went away, then it came back. There was a lot of it. It was a lot of work.
Heck, I feel old. I was born in 2004.
There you go, love. So I started on it before you were even born, love. So ultimately, they had sort of 3 choices. I was their first choice, and they sent him 3 voices. And he said, oh, that guy, that's the guy, you know. Subsequently, over the years, I had run into Al at different sort of theater events and screenings.
Oh, so you have met him?
And I know. Yes, I used to work with him. Yeah, I was in a film.
Cool.
I'm in a film called Looking for Richard, which was a Shakespeare film he did. It was his own film that he did. And I'm in that, and I was involved in that over a period of years, and readings and actors in costume. And it's kind of a documentary, but there's scenes in costume of Shakespeare. There's scenes of actors in New York reading around a table, scenes of Al on the street in New York going up to people going, hey, what do you know about Shakespeare? You know, so there's all kinds of, so I had a relationship with him. So I knew him well before this game. So when it came time for him to pick my voice, I didn't want Al to know it was me necessarily either. Because I just didn't want it. I just wanted to earn it on my performance. So I had run into Al subsequently, but we were never alone where I had a chance to say, hey, by the way. So it must be like 4 years ago, there was a reading of a script, and he likes to hear scripts read. Sometimes he likes to get actors around a table so he can listen to something. And a producer friend of his had a script of a piece, and there was like 16 actors in a room. And somebody called me and said, oh, would you come on Thursday? We're reading the script for Pacino. I'm like, sure. You know, I come in. Now, he didn't know that I had a relationship with Al, and nobody in the room knew that I had any kind of relationship with Al. And I hadn't seen Al in about a good 6 or 7 years at that point. So I walk in, and Al comes into the room, and we're all, you know, he's very focused when he's working. He isn't paying attention to who's at the table. He just wants to hear something. And so when the reading was over, I walked up to Al and gave him a big hug. He's like, hey, kid, how are you? You know, and everyone's like, oh my God, Andre's hugging Al Pacino. How insane. You know, like, was he nuts? You know, they didn't know that I knew him. So later we're sort of standing around. There's like some food. And I walked over and said, Al, by the way, I haven't had a chance to tell you this, but first, to back up, I knew that he didn't know. because I asked the game guys at the end of the process, I said, when you gave him the 3 choices, were their names attached? They said, no, it was just guy number 1, guy number 2, guy number 3. And he said guy number 1. So I knew he didn't know. So then I went up to him. I said, I've never gotten a chance to thank you, but I'm Tony Montana in the Scarface video game. And Al goes, that was you? And I said, yes. So thank you. He goes, I never would have done you a favor, you know, which is very Al, you know, always kind of busting chops.
Oh,
but
dear.
yeah. So yeah. So if you ask, yeah, that game was a very, because of, and also part of now, it's a long arc of time. Historically, Pacino never did a lot of interviews a long time ago. Now he does many more. There's a lot of footage of Al talking in interviews. Back in the day, Al really didn't. So people would see him in a movie and they might imitate Al's voice in a movie, but him as a person, the way an actor is in life is much different from the way an actor is necessarily on screen when you're playing a character. So I knew Al just being Al, and that helped inform the accent because, you know, I've said this before, which is people go after that movie for a lot of reasons. Historically, now you couldn't make that movie because it would be, there was a Cuban actor in that film, Stephen Bauer, but everybody else was Italian, Jewish, whatever. F. Murray, you know, like Al is Italian. It was a lot of non-Hispanic Spanish guys, you know, playing Latin, and that is now not considered appropriate. So, you know, that was a different world. So Al's Tony Montana is not the most perfect Cuban accent by any stretch, but it's an incredible character that no one can ever forget. So for me, I've said this before, if you want to play accent police and ruin something for yourself, you can do that. You know, you can quit. Oh, he's not really a good Spanish. Oh, that's a lousy Cuban accent. But it's an incredible character, and that's what matters. The performance is what's important. So to get, you sort of
have to know an Italian American guy from the Bronx doing a Cuban accent, and then it becomes something else, you know. So it's a bit of a New York thing. It's Tony Montana, okay? I'm not an Italian guy from the Bronx, and I'm not a guy from Cuba, man. I'm Tony fucking Montana, okay?
So he's a mashup in between, and having the baseline of understanding Al's nuances as a person helped me do a really good Tony Montana, especially when you're doing a character for 5,000 lines. You're really living as that voice. You really have to have it in your head for a long period of time. So that's, I think, why I booked it at the time. Also, I went back in my audition and I made sure that I was doing the top like 20 lines from the film. Because when an audition comes out, they usually give you script from the game or script from the movie. And I was like, nobody's heard Tony say these words. First, you got to give them Tony saying what we know Tony says, and then do the game lines. So I did that special on my audition. I don't know that everybody else did that. So that may have also helped me get a little leg up in the choosing. But yeah, so, and I've heard many fantastic Tony Montanas, you know, since mine as well. But, you know, right now there's only 2, me and Al, and it's pretty proud to sort of pick up the mantle and sort of carry it on in a video game. Because at that point, you know, he may very well do something in a game coming up. I've seen him. He was just at the Video Game Awards, which is very suspicious. Why would Al be giving an award at the Video Game Awards? He may be doing something. I don't know. I don't know anything more than anybody else, but I suspect. But again, I don't think Al would be doing, you know, 5,000 lines as Tony Montana for a video game, you know. So I was happy to pick up what he didn't do.
The last topic we're going to touch down on is Puss in Boots. Just like Antonio.
Puss and Boots.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about Puss in Boots. Of course, you haven't seen the new film, The Last Wish, that's come out. But have you met Antonio in person?
You know, to this day, I have not yet met Antonio Banderas. Unfortunately for me, I have not met him. But when I do, I will let him know that I was Puss in Boots and that we have the same birthday, you know.
Am I there? Are you hearing me, dude? Can you hear
Yes.
me? Ah, good. All right.
I could hear you this whole time. Don't worry.
All right. Yeah. So no, I've not yet met
Antonio, but I have matched his voice not just for Puss in Boots, but other things as well.
Yeah, the Puss in Boots character is funny because initially, before the second film came out, I used to match Shrek's voice.
Yeah.
And when they were developing the second film, I was there all the way through because they create storyboards for a movie. And so they have the script, they do storyboards, and they sort of time it out long before they bring the actors in. So they'll bring in actors to sort of voice match that. Now, Puss in Boots had not yet been cast. I didn't know who Puss in Boots was going to be, and I was doing Shrek. So they storyboarded that whole film to my voice as Shrek. Donkey, and then and I remember reading the script as it came in. I go, gosh, the character I want to be in this movie is Puss in Boots, right? It was very funny. Then it came out and it's Antonio Banderas. And then I forgot what I had to, it might have been a commercial, something. Whenever one of those films comes out, there's a lot of ancillary projects that are all connected to it in one way or another. So there were video games, there were commercials, there were movie tie-in special features, animated little things. And so I was sort of the approved Antonio Banderas voice match for DreamWorks at that time. So I've done many, many, many things over those years. And then there was a doll, there was a stuffed animal. I wish I had it now, that you pull a string, and in Antonio's voice, I did Puss in Boots, a stuffed toy.
And just as Tony Montana as well, there's a doll I have somewhere, but it's not talking right now.
You press a button and Tony's greatest hits comes out.
Lost his voice.
Yeah. So whenever you've got a big feature like that in your voice match, there's always sort of stuff that'll tie into the movie one way or another. Commercials, video games, story, special features, that kind of thing. So I did Puss in Boots quite a bit. And then it came time for the animated series that they did on Netflix, but that's right when DreamWorks had a new sort of TV animation division.
Yeah.
And Eric Bauza, who's wonderful, and I know Eric, was very close with the creators of that as well. And I also think at that point, DreamWorks TV was trying to separate itself from DreamWorks features. Again, at the upper levels, there's all kinds of politics. And so the series then went to Eric to cover that. But while that was going on, DreamWorks Features had this thing called DreamWorks TV, which was really YouTube. And I did like 50, as I said, like 50 full motion capture, full body Puss in Boots, which was a great deal of fun because it's very rare. I mean, more and more we get to do mocap in video games, but a lot of the time, because the amount of mocap, oftentimes it's another actor up in Vancouver or Canada working non-union. And then down here in Hollywood, those of us in the union are sort of syncing, or that actor might be doing motion capture to our recorded voices already. So it's complicated, but I don't often get to walk and talk like the character I'm doing in animation. And that was a lot of fun, especially Puss in Boots, because he's so broad and flamboyant. So all the DreamWorks TV stuff on YouTube, I'm really quite proud of. And it was really fun to be at DreamWorks on the soundstage, working with their motion capture crew, doing all that stuff. It was great. And I'm in some smaller stuff in the series itself, but not the lead character. And every so often I still get called in and I'll do a video game or another project, because there's me, there's Eric, and I think there may be one or two other guys. There's a few of us now that do Puss in Boots.
Ooh,
other than Antonio himself.
He's been cloned.
Yes.
Because Antonio is far too busy and too fabulous to be doing his characters all day long, you know.
Righty-ho.
Yeah.
Puss in Boots. Yeah, because all I can think of is that one scene in Shrek 2 where the guards are holding him and they catnip, that's not mine. I know that was Antonio, but still, that's like when I hear Puss in Boots, that comes into mind, that scene specifically. So I'm going to do like a fake outro now, and then I'll probably say goodbye to you if that's all right, Andrew.
Yeah, I didn't even ask. Where are you today in England? You're from the north. That
I'm
I know.
in-
What
I'm
town
in
are you in?
Chester.
You're in Chester.
Yeah, the home of the Romans.
Home of the Romans.
Yeah.
Where they found Roman ruins and things.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's hard to explain. So it's like, hold on. Chester, I can't even spell Romans. Hang on. Oh, we have an American football team apparently called the Chester Romans. I never knew that.
Who
That
knew
is
that?
so Chester Roman history. Right. Yeah, basically the Romans founded Chester as Diva Victrix in AD 70s in the land of Celtic Cornovy, and the racecourse in Chester used to be a harbour, and we had like a Roman amphitheatre and stuff like that. And yeah, it was basically just we just had the basically like a lot of it was basically like Roman central where I am. So there's that. Yeah, I was gonna say next time you come for TF Nation, you have to come to Chester, and I'll give you a tour around because there's like the city walls.
Well, I love that. I have another dear friend. Shout out to my good friend Catherine Bacon, who's from York as well, and she's a proud member of TF Nation. And yeah, so yeah, next time. I mean, the problem with conventions is when you come, they're kind of done with you for a while. I'd love to come back to TF Nation because it was a wonderful weekend and a great community of people.
You know who Billy is, right? Billy Stripes.
I do know Billy, of course.
Yeah, I recently got acquainted with him on Instagram, so I was like, oh, hello.
Yeah, no, Billy's a good guy, and I think they're doing a little one in Manchester this year as well.
Yeah, but that's like mainly comic book
in March,
like a one and stuff.
Yeah, a one day thing in Manchester. But yeah, TF Nation kind of goes every August. They do it, so
yeah, of course, yeah. So I'm ready. You ready to do the outro?
Sure.
Okie dokie. Right, Andre, thank you so much for being on my podcast. I've had such a blast talking to you about all sorts of different things. So thank you.
Pleasure. Great talking with you. And I always enjoy hearing fan feedback and doing podcasts and as I often say, especially with the conventions that we've also talked about, it's nice as an actor and as a voice actor to sort of get that feedback and get that FaceTime from fans, because I've been doing this a long time now, and projects I did, you may have grown up on, but I don't get to hear about it till you're like 18, 19, 20. Little kids are busy watching the cartoons. They're not really talking about them. So in the past 10 years, it's been really, really nice to get that feedback and find out how much my work or the work of my colleagues, affects people's lives and makes them happy. And to be a part of someone's happiness is a real privilege and a gift. And so I never take this for granted, and I never take meeting, wonderful folks like you, Amber, for granted, because it's a really, really nice and special for you to reach out and be able to talk about the work that we do. So thank you. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
You're welcome, Andre. Where can we all find you on the internet? Do you have any social media?
Well,
do you have a website? Is there anything you'd like to promote?
Well, so many things I can't promote because they're secret. But I've got a lot of good things coming out. One thing I can say is I'm always on American Dad. I do tons of stuff on that. And I have a couple of things I think coming out this season when it's done being animated. I don't usually keep secret. But other stuff, yeah, I have so many NDAs on some of the bigger things that I've got coming out. But if you go follow me on Instagram and TikTok, and I'm sure you'll somehow post with this my address and all that. I'll give you that in a minute. Because I'm always posting stuff I'm doing, stuff that's about to come out. There's a really cool cartoon called Road of Vengeance, where I play this evil villain named Weehan, and I know they're still trying to find a buyer for that. So that hasn't been sold, but that's already out there. That's a kind of cool, good lead villain character I get to play in that, and that's a beautiful cartoon. But yeah, there's always cool stuff coming up. So yeah, if you follow me on Instagram, I'm also Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, but mostly Instagram and TikTok. I'm really regularly posting all the time, cool video clips, anecdotes, stories, and let's have a good goodbye from Enrico. There's cool pictures of Enrico as well. Once a week, we post a different Enrico installment. Ooh. So yeah. So definitely, that's the best place to find me, and you'll be updated as to what I'm up to. Or you can just go look at my website, andresogliuzzo.com, and that's on there. But yeah, there's all kinds of different cool projects on there as well, and video clips.
Thank you, and that was my guest, André Sogliuzzo. Thank
you so much, Amber.
You're welcome. You're welcome. To home, thank you so much for watching this episode of In Conversation with ATF with the lovely André Sogliuzzo. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. And as always, thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye and cut.